Long time no see. I'm working as a flight attendant here. What are you doing now, Tyler? After dropping out of high school. At the airport, after more than a decade, I ran into Ashley, a beautiful former classmate from France, with whom I had a falling out back in high school. She ridiculed me when I decided to drop out of high school. Being a high school dropout, you couldn't possibly be doing anything significant. Why are you even at the airport? Ashley still had that tough look in her eyes and spoke to me in a condescending manner. I answered, feeling a bit uneasy. I'm a pilot for your company. What, you? A pilot? That's impossible for a high school dropout. Well, actually, as I was about to explain, she was called away by a colleague and left. Ashley and I reunited under the worst circumstances. Little did we know, from this point on, our lives would become intricately intertwined. My name is Tyler. I'm a first-year high school student, part of a family of 4 including my parents and younger sister, Sky. My father's parents have passed away, but my mother's parents are still alive. They live in France, and my grandfather is French. So, I'm a quarter French. When you're a quarter, classmates often ask, can you speak French? But being a quarter doesn't mean you're born with the ability to speak French. I'm currently studying hard to communicate with my non-English speaking grandfather via video calls. I haven't met my grandparents yet, but hope to visit France and meet them soon. This makes me passionate about my French classes, putting extra effort into both preparation and review. In my class, there's Ashley, a returnee from France, and we always compete for the top spot in French tests. Ashley beat me to first place in the last test, so I'm determined to outdo her next time. During tests, everyone sparks off their own rivalries, but our class generally gets along well. Recently, more than half of us went to an aquarium even though it wasn't a field trip. Of course, Ashley and I were part of it too. There, Ashley and I ended up competing in pride, getting a French version of the aquarium guide pamphlet, and had a tough time. After all, it's a guide to the aquarium, so it's full of rare fish names. Since it's all in French, we had no idea what it was talking about. Both of us thought oh no the moment we opened the pamphlet, but with each other watching, it was too late to back out. We spent the day desperately with that French pamphlet, but honestly, we couldn't understand even half of it. Come to think of it, a few weeks before the aquarium, we also went to an aviation museum with a few people. I love airplanes and aspire to be a pilot. Ashley, who got free tickets, invited me and a few close friends. The museum showcased the history of commercial aviation and the latest technology in passenger aircraft, which thrilled me. During a break at the museum's cafe, I passionately talked about how amazing airplanes are, which slightly put off everyone else. But among them, Ashley was the only one who listened without disdain until the end. I guess Ashley must really love airplanes too. Those carefree high school days seemed to have a clear future, but that turned out to be a sweet illusion. It was on a snowy day, as the first year of high school was coming to an end. In our region, it rarely snows, so we didn't have any snow removal tools prepared. But considering the snowfall that night, we decided it'd be best to shovel, so my parents went out to buy one at the home center. The home center, located along the highway and quite far, would usually require a drive, but we didn't have chains, of course. Driving in the snow was deemed too dangerous, so they set out on foot. While my sister and I were house-sitting, we talked about how late Mom and Dad were. They were so late that we joked they might be drinking coffee at a cafe because it was too cold. They were unusually late. Just as we started to worry if they had slipped somewhere, an unknown number called my phone. Hesitantly, I answered, only to find it was a call from the police. My parents had been hit by a truck that slipped while they were walking along the highway. An ambulance was called immediately, but they passed away before they could be operated on. It was I who answered the call, but my sister understood everything from my expression and burst into tears. Holding her, I cried too. The suddenness of it all left me unable to think. I was only 15 and could do nothing but cry with my sister. What were we to do now? With our paternal grandparents in the U.S. already passed away, our only option was our maternal grandparents in France. They flew to the U.S. immediately upon receiving the news. During the wake and the funeral, they proposed, "Why don't you come live with us in France? We have spare rooms, so you can each have your own, and don't worry about school. We can enroll you in one over there." Leaving the U.S., where I was born and raised, was daunting, but with our parents gone, we had no choice but to rely on our grandparents, who were kind and made us feel safe. My sister felt the same. It's sudden, but I'm quitting school and going to my grandma's place in France. When I told my classmates the next day, they were all surprised. Naturally, I hadn't wanted to burden them with the news of my parents' passing, so I kept it to myself. So, for them, it was like the guy who had been off for a week suddenly came back to school only to say he was dropping out. Especially Ashley, who was strongly opposed. "Tyler, come down and think. If you drop out of high school, you won't be able to do anything in the future. You want to be a pilot, don't you?" she said, near tears with anger. But I, having just lost my parents, couldn't afford to consider the true meaning behind Ashley's words. What did it matter if we couldn't do anything? We, siblings, were in trouble right now. Our only reliance was our grandparents in France. I was not without my fears. "It's none of your business. I'm going to France," I snapped. Ashley and I, usually on good terms, shouting at each other like this, shocked everyone in the class. Neither of us had the luxury to care about the surroundings, and we stormed out of the classroom. The next day, and the day after, Ashley was absent from school. Leaving without making up, I departed for France. Years have passed since then. Upon arriving in France, I was immediately enrolled in a high school there. I thought I had studied French quite a bit, but the French medium classes in French high school were truly challenging. My grandparents taught me words over and over again. They would read textbooks and school notices with me, translating them into English whenever I didn't understand. My sister initially struggled to fit into the French middle school, often crying, but within 2 months, she made friends and eventually became better at French than me, even teaching me slang. Thanks to my family, I never failed a grade and progressed through high school. Gradually, I no longer struggled with the language and went on to university. I fulfilled my childhood dream and became a pilot. After working for a few years with a French airline, I was headhunted by an American airline and returned to the U.S. Today, taking in the familiar air of the U.S., at the airport, I suddenly spotted a nostalgic figure. Ashley. During high school, I had a falling out with Ashley, who was now, as a flight attendant in the airline I'm about to join next month, walking confidently in uniform, pulling her carry-on. Ashley, when she saw me rushing over, she widened her eyes in surprise. But then, Ashley said with a hint of condescension, "Long time no see. I'm working here as a flight attendant. What are you doing now, Tyler?" After dropping out of high school, I answered, feeling a bit awkward. "I'm a pilot for your company." "What are you, Tyler?" Ashley looked puzzled. "That's right. How about we grab some coffee?" I was about to invite her to talk about my time in France when it happened. Called by a colleague in the same uniform, Ashley hurriedly ran off. Ashley, who had been beautiful since high school, had become more sophisticated and even more beautiful as an adult. The slim flight attendant uniform suited her very well. I watched her retreating back in a daze. Just before turning the corner, Ashley glanced back at me for a moment. Our eyes met briefly, and both of us quickly looked away in a fluster. After finally meeting, were we still unable to reconcile? I muttered